This is the Chris Stigall Show podcast.
Okay, guys, let's just rip. And Chris Stigall.
Chris Stigall. Chris, thanks for being with me tonight.
Chris Stigall.
I'm joined now by Chris Stigall.
Now, he puts the broad in broadband. It's Chris Stigall.
The Chris Stigall podcast is presented by usmedicalplan.com. Save big money monthly and get better health coverage at usmedicalplan.com.
It's Monday, the second day of October. Woof. New month already. Welcome into the Chris Stigall Show podcast. I very much appreciate you being here. Thanks so much for your 5-star reviews and your written reviews, and thanks for your patience with me as we continue to sort out the ad placement thing, which I know is still a source of frustration. I'm not ignoring you. I hear you. We're working on it. I was away for a couple of days, which sort of exacerbated the problem, didn't help things. So thanks again for sticking with me. Again, fast forward is your friend. So, and as always, a full and complete refund. So be gentle. Neither are you paying for it, and fast forward is always a functional option. With that in mind, we've got a great show for you today, and I hope you'll check it out because Colonel Kurt Schlichter returns. He's got a brand new book in his Kelly Turnbull series that he wants to talk to you about. It is actually something that he once wrote as fiction. He started writing his fiction back in 2016. Today, I think he actually kind of lives by it. So we're going to talk to Colonel Kurt Schlichter today about his book. Ron DeSantis goes on with Bill Maher and has a very interesting exchange. I wrote a little something at the Harumph Society that I want to explore in relationship to that. I didn't know that DeSantis was going on Bill Maher, but it actually dovetails nicely with this entire Taylor Swift thing and the NFL that I want to talk to you about. If you aren't a Harumpher, I hope you'll become a Harumpher. Also, the congressional shutdown, my trip to D.C., I give you a little bit of backstory there and some things I learned while I was there that I thought might interest you. Really appreciate you being here today, and away we go. Who I know you'll appreciate most of all, though, is a guy that can save you big-time money if you buy your own health insurance. His name is John Ruhlman, and if you haven't met him yet, if you haven't called his operation yet, maybe watch the video of my conversation with John Ruhlman at chrisstigall.com. You can get a sense of who he is so that, if you have some misgivings about calling up a stranger that you're just hearing me talk about, I understand. That's why I recorded the conversation with him, so you get a better sense of who he is. This guy is so talented and so good at finding you the best possible health insurance plan. And I don't mean cut rate. I don't mean corner cutting. I mean really quality coverage at the best possible rate. He knows 80 different private health insurers out there. I don't think I even knew there were that many, but there are. If you buy your own private health insurance, then you know how out-of-pocket costs can really wallop you. Well, John works with 80 of them, so maybe the coverage you need is cheaper in another one of these 80 different companies that he works with. And if he finds them for you, you could be talking about hundreds, if not thousands of dollars a month saved. So if you're a senior on fixed income, if you're a young person in good health, you don't need just gobs and gobs and gobs of money sucked out of your pocket every month when there's a perfectly quality plan out there that can cost you a lot less. Certainly if you're a small business owner and you cover your employees' health insurance, or if you are the head of your family's income as well as insurance coverages, well, a call to John Ruhlman could save you, in a friend's case, $2,000 a month, maybe several $100,000 or more. You got to call him, though, and it's just going to take a couple of minutes to run your coverage by him to make sure that you are as covered as you think you are, and then are you saving as much money as you possibly could be? Only they can help you. usmedicalplan.com, usmedicalplan.com, or 877-410-4321. I hope you had a fantastic weekend, by the way. It's glad to have you here. I had never done this before. We were in Washington, D.C. for a couple of days, my wife and I, for the second annual Excellence in Christian Education Awards, hosted by the Herzog Foundation, which is a foundation that is devoted to spreading, developing, growing private Christian education from sea to shining sea. And we honored 8 different states. I'm not entirely sure how many denominations were represented within the Christian faith, but it was incredible. 12 different teachers from 8 different states and their faculties, some of their faculties and administrative staff at the Museum of the Bible. This is the second year I've been asked to MC the event, and it was just a tremendous honor. And these people are just so spectacular. One from Lancaster, by the way.
Right.
Yeah, just a fantastic guy. He's been teaching for 40 years. And he said, I would never have imagined there would be. And it was one of the brilliant ideas of the Herzog Foundation when they started a couple of years ago. They said, we really ought to honor people who do this for a living. There is no such thing. And so it was a wide agreement right away that that's what they do. And so it's first class the whole way. They fly the teacher and their guest out to Washington, put them up in a very nice hotel for the weekend. All expenses covered, flight, hotel, the whole thing, the meals. Then they bring them to the Museum of the Bible, give them this beautiful awards dinner. Gorgeous view. If you haven't been to the Museum of the Bible, it's worth a stop, by the way. Gorgeous view at night overlooking. You see the Capitol Dome off in the background. And as the ceremony continues, I'm not going to give anything away, I don't think. But at the end of the night, they give the teacher themselves a $2,500 thank you bonus check, and then they give the school that they teach another $2,500. So in essence, the teacher and their school gets $5,000 between them, in addition to the recognition. That's the second year they've done that. By the way, I would just tell you, if you are a private Christian school and you're listening to me and you're like, that sounds pretty good. If you think there's somebody that does outstanding work, check out the Excellence in Christian Education Awards and submit. I believe they start taking submissions pretty soon, maybe in the turn of the calendar at the Herzog Foundation website. It's worth investigating. But anyway, flew to D.C., and it just so happened that this shutdown was looming. And I had called a friend of mine. I said, I'm going to be in D.C. for a day or two, and I have never actually taken a formal tour of the Capitol. Do you mind? He's a congressional staffer. I said, would you mind giving me one? Because the brief window of time that I worked in Congress, I was always over there in the boring House office building across the street. And I never got the chance to actually go into the Capitol. I mean, I'd been in, but never really, toured it officially, which I thought was kind of cool. So he said, sure, we can do that. So I went over to the official Capitol office buildings to meet with this friend of mine. And by the way, they are all fit to be tied and ticked off. And a lot of Republicans, to be perfectly honest with you. And if you read Newt's comments over the weekend, he actually thinks Matt Gaetz is now a Democrat in disguise. And I will just tell you that I met with a couple of different Republican members of Congress off the record, and their staffs off the record, and it was Friday heading into the weekend, and they were going to have to return on Saturday, and they were really starting to get frosted at Matt Gaetz. Fast Eddie, they were mad.
I can imagine, man. It was you're right. It's crazy. Even the public, I think, on Friday, Matt Gaetz's luster, he lost his luster by the end of the week.
When Newt starts calling you a closet Democrat, because my understanding of this is, and I'll be completely honest with you, I didn't follow all the machinations of what was going on, but my understanding is Gaetz killed what would have been effectively an 8% cut in spending. And they ended up getting much less because Gaetz was holding out. There were some choice words shared inside the halls of the official House office buildings. I'll just tell you that. And so I actually went to tour the Library of Congress as well, which I had also never done. And that is a fascinating place that I didn't even get to see what I really wanted to see. You have to make a very specific appointment to do this, but here's something you may not know, or at least I didn't, and worth your time if you ever get the chance. One of the members of Congress told me, they said, you know what you really ought to see. Of course, this person had no idea because he's a member of Congress, so he can just walk over there and go, I'd like to see this and I'd like to see that. And they go, oh, well, yes, right this way, Congressman. But I'm not that, so I can't do that. So you have to have an appointment to see this ordinarily. Do you know that they have a copy of the Declaration of it? If you've been to the National Archives, you've probably seen the original Declaration of Independence. It's very, very faded, though. I mean, they've done everything they can to preserve it, but it was printed, copied so many times, and just through the years, it's faint. It's very hard to read. It's under low light, the original written copy. There is duplicate, exact replica copy of it, though, at the Library of Congress, Festetti. This gave me chills as I was listening to this member of Congress tell me this. He said, Stigall, you're not going to believe this. It has handwritten notes in the margins from Madison and Franklin. Like, here's Jefferson, right? Jefferson's been working on this thing that he thinks is the most brilliant thing that's ever been written. Here you go, fellas. Here it is, the Declaration. And Madison and and Franklin go, well, let's take a peek at that. I don't like that. Scratch that. And they're taking the little quill pen, scratch it. They're making notes in the margins and drawing arrows. Let's put this in there instead of that. Apparently, it really ticked Jefferson off. But there's that copy. If you can imagine that, the handwritten notes from Madison and Jefferson in the margins of the Declaration of Independence, drawing little notes in there of what wanted to correct from Jefferson. Can you imagine? They have that at the Library of Congress.
I knew they had the actual Declaration. I did not. I mean, I can't. How old are those pen strokes? You know what I mean?
And it's under lock and key. They have it in a division of the Library of Congress called Rare Books. And it's, lock and key under a vault, got to go through, it's national security stuff kind of thing. They have the original journals of Lewis and Clark, Festetti, in their possession. Is that amazing? That's some of it.
Cool.
It's so cool.
Wow.
So the Library of Congress, it's another one of those national treasure scenes. If you've seen it, where they go to find one of the books as they're running around D.C., and they show you there. It's a public library, by the way. You get a card, you can go into that beautiful place. But they said, yeah, we don't let people go up on the racks anymore and run around and walk around. They said things started to disappear. And they do check you on the way out the door. They check your bags and things to make sure you haven't tucked a book here in here or there. Beautiful architecture. So I would just tell you, I'd never done it. I never thought much about it. If you haven't done it and you get the chance, it's kind of like Congress Hall in Philadelphia. Nobody goes to Congress Hall in Philadelphia. Everybody goes to Independence Hall, but nobody goes to Congress Hall. And I think that's the more fascinating building, by the way. The upstairs was where the original Senate first met. Down below, Reagan gave his bicentennial. It's where Washington said, see you later, I'm out, peace. Walked down to the house and got his stuff and went home to Virginia. Congress Hall. Worth your time, if you're ever in Philadelphia, by the way. But as an aside, so the Library of Congress, then we went over to the Capitol building. I had never seen this, and I don't know why. Those of you that have taken the tour, you'd know. They have the old Senate chambers and the old Supreme Court are inside the Capitol. And they've kept it just as they were. And what I didn't know is that when Zelensky, I thought this was kind of interesting. When heads of state come to Washington, D.C., and they give an address to Congress, where do they typically go? Do you know? Often it's a joint address, a joint session of Congress, often, when it's a head of state addressing Congress. Typically, they do that where? From the floor of the House, right? Interestingly, though, Zelensky, for all the love that Republicans and all the Democrats and many Republicans give Zelensky and this endless, copious sums of money that we're shoveling to Zelensky, what's interesting? They went to great pains to make sure that Zelensky was not given the same pomp and circumstance of a traditional head of state who would address a joint session of Congress. They stuck him away in the little, what is effectively a museum for tourists now. It's not a functional room. It's just a decorative. They kept it the way it's always been, the old Senate chambers in the Capitol building. And that's where he addressed members. They went into the old original Senate chambers and he talked to them there instead of giving them the House floor. Now, what does that tell you? When I heard that, I didn't think anything of Zelensky visiting or speaking to Congress, but as I stopped and thought about it, as, special and heroic and wonderful as we're told he is, and he should just be given money till the end of time, however it takes, as long as it takes, right? They stuck him in a little old room that's just off to the side with velvet red rope for tourists. Now, why do you suppose they did that? I don't have an answer. I'm asking rhetorically.
I mean, he when someone like that visits Washington, D.C. and addresses Congress, they typically would do it from the House floor. So maybe there are enough people in the House and the Senate that aren't on board with this agenda, and they're just like, no, he's not going to do this again to us.
That's exactly right. My takeaway from that was okay, fine. If we've got to host this guy, we're not giving him all the pageantry. No. If he wants to talk to members, they can go over there and hear him in the old Senate chambers. And so that's where they stuck him. It was notable to me. Now, Dianne Feinstein also happened to die while we were there, which was crazy. The shutdown thing was going on. Then this guy, he pulls a fire alarm. This was the most amazing thing. This guy pulls a fire alarm. He says, no, it wasn't to try to hold up the vote. I promise. It had nothing to do with trying to hold up the vote. I think this is hilarious. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy calling Representative Jamal Bowman of New York, calling for him to be punished after he pulled the fire alarm. He said, today as I was rushing to make a vote, I came to a door that is usually open for votes, but today would not be open. I'm embarrassed to admit that I activated the fire alarm mistakenly, thinking it would open the door. I regret this sincerely and apologize for any confusion. Do you believe that, Fast Eddie?
Of course not. No. Send a staffer to do crap like that. What are you doing?
I can tell you why I know this is garbage. It's funny. I just happen to personally have a story today that I know that's not true. I was with a member of Congress on Friday as they had to go make another vote on this CR that ended up failing. It was the last vote I think they took on Friday, and they were going to all have to come back. In fact, the member of the staff, the Capitol Hill staff that was giving me the tour, was grousing the whole damn time because he said, I'm going to come back here tomorrow, son of a record, my whole weekend's wrecked. But the reason I know that's not true is when these members vote, they have staffs that are all in the office, and they're like, hey, you got 15 minutes. While I was actually talking with a member of Congress, the staff kept popping in. They said, you got 15 minutes. He's shoveling a salad, trying to eat quick. It's really sort of I'm not suggesting anybody pity members of Congress, but I will say when you watch them in person working, it's not exactly a sexy, glamorous life. It's actually really sort of, a lot of them actually sleep in their offices, Fast Eddie. Do you know that? To save money?
I do. Chris, it was funny. I'll never forget Fred Keller when they were trying to ram through the CARES Act or whatever. And he's like, and I'm like, hey, can you join us on the show the next day? He's like, this is like 2,000 pages I have to read between now and then. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's right. And a lot of them don't, they'll share expenses and bunk up like their roommates in college, or they just sleep in their office until they just can't stand it anymore. And then they'll, like their first resort is to sleep in their office. But then when they can't stand that and they actually want a bed to sleep in, then because they go down to the congressional showers and everything in the gym to groom themselves after they've slept in their office all night. I mean, it's literally like living in a fancy dorm in many ways. And then a lot of them decide, well, okay, how about you and you? I like you and you enough. Let's rent a $2 gazillion a month, 2-bedroom across town that we'll all split, which isn't much better, but that's... And then as they end up kind of becoming more set in their seat, their tenure extends, they make a couple more bucks, they get on a couple more committees, then all of a sudden they're living high. I'm not suggesting you pity them. I mean, they all become pretty well off if they hang tough for any amount of time. And the longer you hang in Washington, D.C., the wealthier you become. Not that you and I don't understand that. So, but if you're young, if you're a young upstart freshman member of the House, life kind of sucks. I mean, it's not... So this guy, he's shoveling a salad before he has to go over there to vote. And then they took me down underneath where you go through the tunnel. There's a tunnel from the office buildings across the street from the Capitol. You can either leave out the old Capitol building front doors and go down the big dramatic steps that everybody sees from the street and then walk across the street if you want. And a lot of members do that because it's faster than actually going through the tunnel. But now the Senate has little trains On the other side of the building and across the street on the other side of the building, the Senate office building, you go down into the tunnel and you can hop on a little train, and they take a little train car to theirs. The House still has to hoof it, and it's a pretty healthy walk. So some House members, if nobody knows who they are, like freshmen, nobody knows. Some freshmen from Montana, nobody knows who they are. They can walk down the street without being bugged. Like even the media doesn't know who they are. They'll just walk out the main front doors because it's faster to get back to their office that way. We walked through the tunnel with some members of Congress. That's a hike. No, this guy. So my point in telling you that story is they don't have to go through any secure door at all. I physically saw this. I walked this route. There is no secure door that you even have to go through to go vote as a member of the House. Once you're in your House office building and you go to vote, you go down through the tunnel and you go in to vote. That's that. There's no secure door. There's nothing that's typically open but locked today. That's nonsense. Today, as I was rushing to make a vote, I came to a door usually open for votes, but today not open. I want to be very clear, this was not me in any way trying to delay a vote. It was the exact opposite. I was trying to urgently get to a vote, which I ultimately did, and joined my colleagues in a bipartisan effort to keep our government open. Jamal Bowman. So there are people, a Republican from New York said that she's going to introduce a resolution to expel this guy today. Julie Kelly said she woke Sunday morning after she heard this, and she was shaking in terror that an insurrection had occurred there at our Capitol. I agree. It was a harrowing moment when you shut down the business of the people for your own political ends. Did Jamal Bowman lead an insurrection there, Fast Eddie, do you think?
He could have. He would have been in the place to do it, man.
So anyway, they pass it. The government is funded for the next 45 days. There were a couple of holdouts in the Senate, if you care. Were most people paying attention to this or not? I got the sense people were not as engrossed in this nail-biting cliffhanger of a... in Washington, people were paying attention to it because naturally it meant a couple of things. Number one, they were getting geared up to shut everything down. Do you know, this is another one of those things. You wouldn't know it. You and I wouldn't know it because we're not there. We don't live there. Nobody reports on it because that would require news media. And who tells you these things? But I was, again, talking with this particular member of Congress. He said, Chris, 3/4 of this city is still unoccupied. I said, what do you mean? He said, all these office buildings all around us, all these government buildings, FAA, FCC. I said, yeah. He said, 3/4 of them are empty. I said, where are they? He said, home. I said, because of the shutdown? He goes, no, they've been home since COVID. I said, but it's over. He goes, I know, but they don't come back. I said, don't they have to? He said, not unless somebody makes them. I said, so Biden hasn't asked them to come? He said, oh, he's asked them because I remembered Biden actually even made the point. Remember this? Biden, like a year ago, said, all right, everybody, the husk, time to come back. But he didn't demand it. He didn't order it. And I had forgotten this. He told everybody he would strongly suggest they come back for like 3 days a week. They didn't do it. Fast Eddie, blocks and blocks, acres and acres and acres of government buildings that you and I pay for are sitting empty while these people just work remotely. And I think you and I all know that government workers working remotely equals what? Not a whole hell of a lot of work happening at all on your dime and mine.
That's tube and Zoom time.
That's right.
Yeah.
So, again, one of the things about driving through Washington, if you've done it with any regularity or any time recently, and you see the blocks and blocks and city blocks of government bureaucracies, and then you consider that they're all sitting empty, and all those thousands of people that would ordinarily fill those multiple city blocks of government bureaucracies, they're now all sitting at home on Zoom, collecting their checks. And then you're down there. We stayed down on what they call the wharf in Washington, D.C. That's why it's hard for me. I'm glad to go to honor Christian educators, but if it weren't for that reason, I would be nauseated. It's getting harder. I love the history of it. I love to see the monuments, but every time I go to D.C., I get just a little more. I need a little more pep, though. I revere it less, and I get sickened by it more. Because you see all the government bloat, and then we were staying down on what they call the Wharf, which is a fairly newly developed hotel and restaurant space on the Potomac. Beautiful area. Just over the bridge from the Jefferson Memorial, very close to Reagan Airport, as a matter of fact. And just down the way is where they keep Marine One, the Husks helicopter that always lands on the lawn, you know? Marine One, I'd have to check this out, too. Maybe somebody who's in aviation or knows something about the way this works can backfill me here. They're constantly flying Marine One all the time. It takes off and it flies down the Potomac to over to Alexandria on the other side of the river, Virginia, and then it will come back and land. And it does this, you'll see, if you're there for any amount of time, you'll see it. It seems 2 or 3 times a day, unless I'm imagining it. At least once a day, you will see Marine One flying and then flying back. Now, I don't know if the Husk is taking the chopper that many times in the course of a day. I doubt it. I don't think so. Maybe. But I think they just run perpetual practice sessions. And see, I don't know, as I've gotten older and more hardened, now I just watch that and go, well, there's a few grand just flying through the air just because, everything's got a dollar figure attached to it, right?
Oh, yeah. No, he's in there with his helicopter hat. I want to go again. No, sir, please. Go again.
Uppy, I want it again. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. But anyway, they're flying that mission constantly up and down. I don't know if they're keeping practice. I don't know if they're making sure it's maintained and running well, whatever. But down there on the wharf, all these huge cruisers, like private yachts, is the only way to describe it. They're not, pontoon boats, little outboard motors for fishing. They're yachts. I don't know, a few hundred yacht slips. And all of them flying flags with different government agencies on them. And you're just like, who is that? Who owns that? Proudly flying their government agency flag festetti on the yacht. And they're all government contractors. Every one of them is somebody that's getting all kinds of kickback money from things like this appropriations bill. Your tax dollars fully funding some man or woman or people who are buying yachts with your taxpayer dollar. It's so gross. The whole city is just so gross. And here's the pièce de résistance. Right next to all these yachts is this big dock. And for the second year in a row, we've been there in conjunction with an event on this big pier. Well, it's a big pier that sticks out into the water right next to all these yachts. The Atlantic, the august D.C. publication of record, The Atlantic, hosts their annual Who's Who party. And it's gone on in conjunction with our Christian Education of the Year awards at the Museum of the Bible. And we've stayed for 2 years in a row at a hotel just that overlooks this pier where the Atlantic is throwing their big Who's Who party. And naturally, who shows up at the posh Atlantic Who's Who party with all the yachts? Josh Shapiro, governor of Pennsylvania, and Nancy Pelosi. Yeah, of course. That's how he spent the weekend. The new governor of Pennsylvania is already rubbing elbows and hobnobbing in D.C. at the Atlantic. So he's working it hard, ladies and gentlemen. Keep a sharp eye on him. Not that you didn't understand this, but he's been eyeballing 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue for a while as everybody begins to speculate when the Husk will step down and who will step in. I don't know. It's probably too soon to suggest it would be Josh Shapiro, but just watch. Just keep a sharp eye. I don't know how much time he's spending in Washington. I guarantee that wasn't widely reported. I just accidentally happened to be there and saw it with my own eyes, so I can confirm it.
I think that Newsom still has the celebrities on his side. Like he's got the celebrity California thing going. I don't think Joshy can overcome that right now.
Josh has more wins politically, though. You know, he's got the I-95. He's got, what else did he do here? Oh, yeah, he caught the killer. He caught the murderer in Chester County.
That's right, I forgot.
I don't know. I'm not saying I know that to be sure. I mean, everything's a guessing game. Speaking of at the Harump Society today, I have a fun guessing game. We're going to run a contest here as we're approaching 1 year of the Harump Society. Your opportunity a little later today, and you'll win a big prize there at the Harump Society. I'll tell you more about it a little later today. If you predict correctly the date, we're going to be asking very specifically if you correctly pick the date that the Husk calls it a day and bails out. And in case there's a tie, we're going to ask you to submit specifically what the reason is he'll give for bailing out of the race. So that will be the ongoing contest. You got to pick the specific date the Husk will bow out as the candidate for a second term. And then the tiebreaker will be what's the reason he will give. Now, some of you don't believe he's bailing out, I understand. But for those of us who do, and many do, by the way, many trusted names I know now believe there's no way in the world. You know, Bill O'Reilly told us last week he doesn't believe there's any way in the world Biden's on the ticket come next November. That means he's got to formally step down. I mean, unless he takes the big swan song, which I'm not going to go there. So I'll just say, if he decides to gracefully bow out, what date do you think that will be? Then I suppose we could do a separate contest as to who you think would then step in. And it sounds very likely, ladies and gentlemen, that my prediction is coming. I made several predictions here. I hate to do a lot of back patting, but I've got some end zone dancing to do today. I'll get into more of that coming up. It's been my pleasure and honor to talk about Bob Spinato at Williamsburg Dental in Broomall, just off the Blue Route, as my dentist and friend of over 12 years now. But now he has two brand new associates, his daughter Alexa and Dr. Geddes. Tell him about him, Bob.
Yeah, it's really a thrill for me to have both the dentists, my daughter and Dr. Jared Geddes. One of the things that I love about them both is when they don't have a patient in their chair, they're in my room watching what I do and trying to learn from me. And we hear enough about the new generation, and they think they know everything and they don't want to work. And I've got two dentists who are really want to learn and really willing to learn, to work hard. And I enjoy learning from them. They brought some new skills and some new technologies to our office that will be great benefits to our patients. And so, if anything, I think that having them both there is going to expand and lengthen my career as opposed to shorten my career.
Pick up the phone or go online, make that appointment, 610-353-2700 or williamsburg-dental.com. Dig that up fast, Eddie. I'm just curious, because the bowling alley waitress, Merrick Garland, he sounds like a guy who has a heavy smoking issue. First of all, there's something about him. He sounds like a little old lady who's been smoking since she was 20, now in her 80s. I call him the bowling alley waitress. He sounds like he got a lot of cats, like plastic on his furniture. There's a warble in his voice. And every time I hear him speak, he was on 60 Minutes this weekend. Every time I hear the bowling alley waitress speak, it reminds me of that first recording of Thomas Edison back in 1877 when he recorded Mary Had a Little Lamb. Let's put this to the test, because in my mind, this is always how I've heard it. So here we go. The first recorded sound.
Mary had a little lamb whose fleece was white as snow, and everywhere that Mary went, the lamb was sure to go.
I think that's about right. Yeah, so now Merrick Garland, please.
You are not in communication with the president or any member of his administration with regard to the investigation of former President Trump.
No, I am not.
If President Biden asked you to take action with regard to the Trump investigation, what would your reaction be?
I am sure that will not happen.
Yeah.
We do not have one rule for Republicans and another rule for Democrats. We don't have one rule for foes and another for friends. We don't have one rule for the powerful and another for the powerless, for the rich or for the poor.
Yeah, and Thomas Edison again?
Whose fleece was white as snow, and everywhere that Mary went, the lamb was sure to go.
You hear it? I swear to you, Merrick Garland sounds like he was recorded in 1877. I'm an audiophile, folks. I'm sorry I'm cursed with it. There's nothing I can do about it. That's all I hear when I hear him, that warbling voice that sounds like we dug it out from the basement of the Library of Congress. Here it is, a rare first recording of Thomas Alva Edison. Oh, no, that's the Attorney General of the United States.
Wow. So when you were in Congress, you actually saw the phonograph that Merrick Garland first used back in the...
Why does he sound like a 900-year-old smoker, Merrick Garland, exactly? I don't even know that he smokes. I just don't know how you achieve that sound. And I can't tell if it's nerves. He always sounds nervous. He sounds like the shifty, nervous guy that... it's not quite analogous, because I'm trying to remember who that guy reminded me of. There was a guy that testified before Congress that reminded me of Martin Short, who used to play the nervous executive chain smoking all the time on Saturday Night Live. That's not Merrick Garland. It's not the same. But Garland always has this nervous sound to his voice, this quivering. I don't know if it's anger. I bet it's anger. Some people's voice quivers when they're nervous or they're scared or they're upset. And then there are those whose voices quiver because they're trying to keep their bubbling rage from boiling over. And I actually think Merrick Garland's the latter. I think he's a peevish, nasty, mean-spirited, angry, hateful little old man who's always just trying to keep his simmering rage just down to a simmering boil. Anyway, let's shift to something else for a little bit. I'll get back to Washington in a while. Bill Maher had an interesting sit-down with Ron DeSantis. Why do you think, just because I like to ask why, maybe nobody else asks why, or maybe the why is obvious, I don't know. Why do you think Ron DeSantis decides to go in and sit down with Bill Maher? There's always a why. I mean, you're running a campaign. You make a calculated decision to grant interviews, and you'll make a calculated decision to go into certain venues. If you're counseling Ron DeSantis and the Bill Maher people ask you to come on, you have to consider, do you do it, do you not do it? They ultimately decide to do it. Okay, so why? I don't have the answer. I'm asking rhetorically. Why might you go do this?
They have to appeal to a new audience. Absolutely. If you're asked to go on Bill Maher, people watch Bill Maher. Do it.
Do you anticipate it's going to be hostile?
Oh, yeah.
Is this to show that even up against somebody that's hostile, you can hang?
I don't know. Yes, because I think Ron DeSantis believes he can hang. Yes.
Chris Christie could hang. I'll give Christie credit. Like, Christie probably wouldn't be afraid of this invitation, and he'd go, wouldn't he?
Yeah.
Has he been invited? I'm sure he's been on this show before. I don't know if he's been invited or not. Chris Christie did a lot of pop culture interviews back in the day, and I heralded him for it back then. He did the donut. Remember, he pulled the donut out of his suit coat on Letterman years ago? I thought he just had fun with it. Yeah, I'm a fat guy, but I can hang. I can make fun of myself. He did the mom dance on Jimmy Fallon. Christie in his day, I know it's irksome now to even think about Chris Christie, but back in his day, I would have put any amount of money on that guy becoming the next president of the United States, and I wanted to see it. I'll be perfectly honest with you. I didn't think there was anybody better at going, which, actually, do I open this can of worms now or not? Not yet. I'll just say, stay tuned. I've got more to say about this. But at the Harump Society over the weekend, on Friday heading into the weekend, I took a career risk and ticked some of you Harumpers off because I invoked Taylor Swift. And it wasn't to be needlessly antagonistic, but it was to make a point. We have a problem in the Republican Party of assuming that we can ignore popular culture, shake our fists at it, and win. And I'm here to tell you that we can't. And you don't have to embrace it, and you don't have to love it, and you don't even have to like it. But the days of us shaking our fist at those damn kids and their dungarees and their bubble gum and their rock and roll, and I don't like it one bit. That crap has got to stop. Our party is full of people like that, and I want them gone. At best, I want people like that to just shut the hell up. You do not have an obligation to be society's lifeguard to let everybody know whether or not something is socially, morally, entertainment-wise, sports-wise acceptable to you. And if it's not, you don't understand why it's so damn popular. It just is. It just is. There are millions of people in the country who listen to, who watch, who enjoy fill in the blank thing. And no amount of you screaming and shaking your fist and saying, I don't understand it, is going to make it go away. So rather than needlessly antagonize people and poke them and say, you idiots, you're fools for liking the thing that I don't like. Some Republicans actually believe it's smarter to try to at least walk into these places and engage them. I happen to be one of those people. I agree with it. Are they our friends? No. How many times have I said when leftists make points that we agree with or that can be useful, use them. It doesn't mean we lovingly wrap our arms around them and embrace everything that comes out of their mouth. It doesn't mean we make them the official mascot of the GOP. When Kim Kardashian or Kanye West or Russell Brand or Bill Maher or Dave Chappelle, or name your entertainer, name your star, name your singer. When they become politically useful on a particular issue, embrace them and use them. But let us not, those damn comedians, those damn singers, those damn sports people with their blah, blah. They're billion-dollar cottage industries. You don't have the luxury of just ignoring them and pretending they don't exist and thinking that you're going to win elections. You just don't. Now, having said all that, this can go poorly for people who aren't nimble. Is Ron DeSantis nimble? I'm just asking. I'm not rendering judgment here. In fact, to be perfectly honest with you, because I was traveling on this weekend, I haven't been able to sit down and watch it all. I saw clips on the plane on X, formerly Twitter, so I didn't see it in its full context. I don't know how much of it you saw, Fast Eddie. What I saw, he didn't come off poorly. I thought he did well. Did you think so or not? Did you see it in context?
Absolutely. I have a cockiness about Ron DeSantis being able to go into these arenas and do well.
Now, remember, he's also about to do a debate head-to-head with Gavin Newsom on Fox. So maybe it's debate prep for Newsom. I don't know. And surprisingly, Bill Maher was deferential on some things and defended DeSantis on some things. Remember, if you go back, and we don't have to do this now, but I mean, if you remember, there was a period of time in the height of COVID when Bill Maher said that Ron DeSantis was right and that Ron DeSantis did it better than most everybody else in the country. Let the sun and the wind do its thing. That was back when everybody was still hiding behind masks and jumping off of jogging paths in outdoor parks, running from one another in terror. Bill Maher lauded Ron DeSantis. What was the line he used? Sometimes the science is the science, or
I said Ron DeSantis actually reads.
Oh, reads. That's right. I've read that Ron DeSantis reads. That's what it was. Well done, Pastetti. Good recall. I've read that Ron DeSantis reads too. That he's not a dope. So Bill Maher actually respects DeSantis here, which is why he got the invitation. I mean, yes, Bill Maher took his shots. But listen to the full-throated defense here and attacks the New York Times for unfairly criticizing Ron DeSantis on COVID. Number 90.
So the New York Times did such a despicable hit piece on you that I saw, because I forget what the lead headline was, but it was basically Ron DeSantis the pandemic. And then, like, at the very end, it says Florida's death rate overall was better than the national average. Now, if you're going to do an article, about Florida and the pandemic, shouldn't that be the lead? Yeah. Shouldn't that be the? Talk about burying the lead.
We're the number one state for in-migration. I mean, if we did so bad, people would have been leaving Florida. People are coming. Wealth's moving into the state.
Politics is downstream from culture. Andrew Breitbart's the one that said it. It's not original to me. He literally started a site called Big Hollywood. And back in 2013, 14, no, earlier than that, my gosh, I guess it was before 2010, I started contributing to Big Hollywood. I started writing about comedy and the attack on comedy back then, in the era of Barack Obama. John Nolte was running Big Hollywood at the time. And Andrew Breitbart's first kind of foray into becoming a news site was not Breitbart News as you know it today. It was Big Hollywood, because he came from the left coast. He came from the LA scene. And he believed that, yes, politics is downstream from culture, and you've got to understand culture, and you've got to play in the cultural space if you want to impact politics. You have to. You cannot simply shake your fist and say, I don't like culture. I don't like the way things are going. Now, that doesn't mean you have to be, listen to me. You can be in the world and not of it. You hear me? You can be in the world and not of it. You can love people where they are. You can meet people where they are. Doesn't mean you have to be them. Doesn't mean you have to embrace their behaviors and ideals. It doesn't mean you have to celebrate them. But you do have to engage with them, and you do have to talk to them, and you don't need to needlessly antagonize them. And if they invite you to have a sit-down conversation, you should go and take them up on it. And Ron DeSantis is, and he does it well here. Here's kind of the opening couple of minutes of his conversation with Maher, and DeSantis very, again, this is somebody who does this well, and DeSantis does. He's a trained litigator. So he has his facts. He knows his stuff. He's not afraid of the debate. Yeah, he's a little wooden, no doubt about it. He's not the most comfortable guy, but he knows his stuff. And he does end up getting the best of Maher. I mean, just when you think Maher's kind of really laying him out and making the case, DeSantis drives it home and shuts Maher up. Listen.
But, the thing is, you did not take my advice.
What was it?
I was on this show a few times when we talked. I said, this guy's crazy to run this time. He's, 45 years old?
Yeah.
You just had a birthday, right?
Yeah.
You could run for the next 20 years. If you were Biden, the next 40. Okay, why run against Trump? You're trying to thread this needle that will never happen.
Well, for a couple reasons.
You can't disavow him because that's the base, and yet you're running against him. And that's why, let's face it, Ron, if campaign was going well, you wouldn't be on this show.
Oh, that's not true. One, I don't think he can win the election. I could win the election. Two, I don't think he could actually get the job done that we need to do. For example, COVID. I think we need accountability for what this government did to this country with the COVID restrictions, mandates, and lockdowns. Donald Trump is not going to do that. He says he did everything right. He says he saved millions of lives with lockdowns. He claims his mRNA shot saved 100 million lives. He's not going to clean house at CDC, NIH, FDA, or any of that. I will do that. I will get the job done. And a lot of other things we do. The one thing about me in Florida, and even my critics will acknowledge, if he says he's going to do something, he will follow through and get the job done. So it's about the country. Are we going to get the country turned around or not? I don't think he's a vehicle that's doing. And I have been, when I supported him on the things I liked, I've said it. But I've been critical about the things that he didn't do, and I'll continue to do that.
Okay, but you campaigned for election deniers in 2022. This I do not forgive.
Well,
to quote The Godfather. Carrie Lake, who said Biden is an illegitimate president. Trump didn't.
Well, now she's attacking me, so maybe I did make a mistake there, because she's out there saying, she's trying to say that we mandated vax in Florida when we did the opposite. We protected people even from private mandates. So that may have been.
But Trump lost the election, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so why did you campaign for people who
Because I wanted to see Republicans win key races.
And
I think it's important.
That's not a deal breaker issue for you? That's not democracy?
Well, okay, let's go back to 2016. Your friends in Hollywood were cutting ads telling the Electoral College to vote against Trump in the Electoral College because it was stolen. They said Russia stole the election. For years they said that. So don't act like this is like a unique thing in modern history of the country.
First of all, Ron, I have no friends in Hollywood.
Yeah.
Harumph. I didn't get a harumph out of that guy. Give the governor harumph. Harumph. You watch your ass.
Yeah, the governor kicked ass there. He definitely deserves a harumph. Well done by Ron DeSantis. Now, that's a halfway great answer. I will say half because he needs just a little more there. And what I wanted a little more of there from Ron DeSantis is to not get backed into this election denier thing. That bugs the crap out of me. And he has already decided that he's got to kind of heal and go back on the whole election denial thing. This I do not forgive, says Bill Maher. Yeah, well, you know what I don't forgive, Bill? All of your pals in media misleading, if not outright covering up and working to censor the Hunter Biden story. I don't forgive that. And you don't have to talk about, you could, if you want to go down in the weeds about states like Pennsylvania, unconstitutionally conducting elections, if you want. but maybe that's too in the weeds. Stick with the Hunter Biden story every time. So when we talk about election interference, did Joe Biden legitimately win? Did Joe Biden legitimately win? No. The answer is no, he didn't legitimately win, because a legitimate win is a legitimate, open, honest, fair trial and a fair hearing for the American people to vet. Was there a legitimate, open, honest, fair hearing of these men for the American public by news media? That's a serious question. Was there an honest, open, fully transparent dissection of these two men by the American news media for all the voting public to see ahead of the election 2020? The answer is no. Of course there was not. The American public, by a large, I won't say a large margin, but a measurable margin, a margin that would have well handed the election to Donald Trump, has since acknowledged if they knew the details and the particulars of the Hunter Biden story today, then as they know them today, if they had known what they know now about Hunter Biden back then before their vote in 2020, they would have changed their vote. Polls have said that's true. That's not me. Respondents to polls have said as much, and enough people have said that it would have tipped the election to Trump. So when you're asked, did Joe Biden legitimately win the presidency? You can credibly say, no, he did not. You don't have to do this, well, I'm sorry about the election denial, friends. There's no reason to get nervous about election denial in 2020. That was not a legitimate, transparent election. There's no need to run from that. I get really tired of people on our side feeling bullied like they got it. And that is a easy baseline entry level way to tackle that. You don't even have to, like I say, go down in the weeds of all of the many different challenges and hearings and videotapes and questions and ballot harvesting. And you don't even have to. You could. You don't have to. But on the other front, where DeSantis reminds Bill Maher, I beg your pardon? Your side spent the entirety of Trump's presidency calling him an illegitimate candidate, an illegitimate president who won because of Russia. He was a Putin stooge. Hillary to this day, Stacey Abrams to this day, they still claim they rightfully won their first elections. Your pals in the media have called Trump's election illegitimate from the jump. That's exactly right. So, look, if the new standard is once the media has declared a winner, the winner, and there is no questioning of elections anymore, if that's our new standard, fine. But you know damn good and well that when Republicans win elections, Democrats are not going to go, oh, well, I guess that's fair then. Everything seemed on the up and up. The Republican won. I guess there's nothing more to discuss. You know that's not true. That's not how they behave. Al Gore was the original election denier. The Supreme Court had to step in and decide that one. As Alan Dershowitz reminds us, if people treated Al Gore the way they're treating Donald Trump right now about election denialism, Al Gore would be in prison. He wouldn't be running around talking about the polar bears drowning. But anyway, I commend Ron DeSantis for going on this show. I think it was fantastic. Do you agree with Bill Maher here, Fast Eddie? You wouldn't be on this show if your campaign was doing well? Do you agree with it? Now, you heard Ron DeSantis. Well, that's probably true. He kind of said there. Do you think that's true? He's trying to make inroads here because he's struggling?
I do think so, only because if he were leading, it would give him that edge, that coolness factor. Think of Trump and Jimmy Fallon.
Yep.
You know what I mean? There's no Mars. I think Maher is too smart for that. If Ron DeSantis were the front runner, he'd be like, he's not coming on this.
Let me ask you this. If Bill Maher invited Donald Trump to come on that show, do you think Trump would go?
Trump, yes.
I think he would too. Here's the dirty little secret. None of these shows are going to invite Trump. Trump isn't welcome and isn't going to be invited on these shows. Ever. I guarantee you none of them have reached out. They'll never make... You know what happened to Jimmy Fallon when he invited Trump? Fallon is still paying for tussling Trump's hair and humanizing him. So, you know, DeSantis has taken a page from Chris Christie's old book here. He's taken a page from what Trump did very, very well. All right, maybe I'll start ingratiating myself on some sets and some settings that are traditionally kind of hostile to me. I'll show I can hang. I can be cool. Now, the question is, does he look comfortable Is he selling it? Does he look good? Is he nimble? Is it working, or does he come off as stilted and awkward? That's a judgment call for you. I'm not necessarily going to render a judgment myself, but does he look comfortable doing that?
With Maher, he did.
He did.
He did look comfortable with Maher, yeah.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if he'll be welcome on any of these other platforms. I commend Maher for inviting him. We'll see. We'll see. When he's head-to-head with Newsom, I think that's going to be a barn burner because I don't think he has to be funny. I don't think, look, it's not, I'm not being unfair to DeSantis here. It's just true. DeSantis is not a naturally funny guy. DeSantis is not like your buddy. Oh, wait till you hear the great joke Ron tells. That's just not who he is. And I'm no life of the party either. I'm a wallflower at parties. I'm not particularly the life of any party. I am violently uncomfortable in most mixed settings. So I completely respect and understand you do not have to be Donald Trump in every room you walk in to be effective at your job. Don't misunderstand. Now, maybe to win an election you do. I don't know. I wrote a piece at the Harumph Society, and it was not, I will just put it to you this way, Fast Eddie. It was not as warmly received as some others have been. But rather than complain, I think most Harumphers who are very, very smart just decided to bite their tongues until they were bloody and just no comment on the matter. But I wrote a piece heading into the weekend about Taylor Swift and her recent relationship with NFL star Travis Kelce, the brother of Jason Kelce. And the fact that she's been hanging out with the Kelce brothers' mother, Donna, there in the suite. And she was there on Sunday Night Football again last night. Miserable Jets team. Nobody expected anything from, and they ended up making it a great game, actually, and a nail-biter for the Chiefs last night. But NBC didn't do it a bunch because there was an actual game to cover. But NBC did their fair amount of cutaways to Taylor Swift. Have you seen the numbers for Taylor Swift on that Bears Chief? So the Bears are a disaster of a football team. The Bears are the worst football team in the league, I think, on paper and maybe statistically. Did you happen to see the ratings for that Bears game, Fast Eddie? So
no.
Here's a miserable Bears game. Nobody wants to watch the Bears. You certainly don't want to watch the Bears play a fairly decent team like the Chiefs, right? Who watches that, particularly when they're getting shellacked by 30 points? Who's watching it? Well, the Fox broadcast of that abysmal game last week was the highest-rated NFL game of the week with women in 3 different age demographics: 12 to 49, 18 to 34, and 18 to 49. First with women. The telecast was also the most watched NFL broadcast of the week last week. 24.3 million total viewers. Now, that game last week, the Chiefs whooped up on the Bears by 30 points more. It was a blowout. There was nothing to watch by the second half. And it was the most watched football game of the week last week. Fast Eddie, do you know why?
I think it's Taylor Swift being in the booth. Yeah.
And I bet you're going to see later today, you're going to see the ratings come out for yesterday's football. And yesterday's football, Chiefs, Jets, a miserable Jets team. Nobody wants to watch that. I mean, I think Sunday Night Football thought they were going to have Aaron Rodgers versus Patrick Mahomes. Of course, they don't get that now because Aaron Rodgers is out for the season. But Taylor Swift was in the stands watching her boyfriend or her date or whatever they call him. I don't know. They're seeing one another. So she was there, and NBC did a fair amount of referencing, cutting away to her. What do you bet? And by the way, tickets for that game, tickets for that miserable Jets team, through the roof on the open market once the word got out that Taylor Swift was going to be in attendance. Now, why do I bring that up? And this is why I wrote it at the Harumph Society. Because if you don't recognize that, if you don't understand that, if you don't see the power in that, now I know it is tempting because I hear a lot of you grousing, here he goes. talking about Taylor Swift and football. You're frickin', I don't like her, and I don't like football, and they kneel, and Travis Kelce's a liberal, and she's a liberal, and I don't even think she's any good, and rah, rah, rah. I hear your belly aching and you're whining about it, and I'm going to tell you to grow up. Because if you don't understand what I just said to you, that there is great power in this woman's stardom. There is tremendous power in the NFL. They are multi-billion-dollar forces, and they've just merged. Why in the world would you want to needlessly antagonize it, Fast Eddie? Why would you want to antagonize it? You don't have to like it. I'm not telling you to love it. I'm not telling you have to download all her music or watch a single down of football. Why would you needlessly antagonize it if you're a Republican? Why would you do that?
There is no reason at all.
Why would you tell an 18, 19, 20, 21, 25, 30-year-old woman, you're awful, she's awful, stupid music, stupid woman, waste of time, she's a liberal, I'm not watching, rah, 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 rah. These women are watching football now who weren't before. So what are we going to do with that? What do you do with it? Well, I don't watch the NFL either. Okay, well, I hate to break this to you, but the NFL is not shrinking in stature. Eagles football, Chiefs football, 49ers football. It's as big as it's ever been, and it's only getting bigger, folks. It's not going away. These are cultural forces, and I will just speak on my family's behalf. My daughter, who's 15, not a political girl, young woman, she loves and adores Taylor Swift. So does her cousin. And I, at great personal expense and time, made certain that my 15-year-old daughter and her cousin got to see Taylor Swift this summer. And it made their lives, it was the most important thing to them that had ever happened. Tears and shrieking and... Look, do I understand it? I don't. But did I cuss it and yell and, I'm not taking you stupid kids and your damn Taylor? Who looks at their kids and tells them, you're a moron for liking that thing, kid? Do you look at your kids and tell them, like, I don't know, maybe, what were you into as a teenager, Fast Eddie?
Oh, as a teenager, I was into music, honestly.
Yeah.
Like,
was there a particular kind?
I liked it all. I liked pop. I liked rap. It's crazy, Chris. All of it.
Now, I know that parents, historically, has always been the parent. Well, turn that noise off. That's not real music or whatever. But do parents need, this is biblical, do you needlessly antagonize your children over things they like? I mean, unless it's harmful, obviously if it's drugs or it's something dangerous. But I mean, do you needlessly antagonize your kids because they want to wear their jeans a certain way or they want to listen to a certain kind of music? You don't needlessly antagonize them.
No.
So Trump sends out a tweet this week, or he gives a comment, actually, I guess, to the Daily Caller. They ask him about Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift. And he simply said, smartly, he said, I wish them a long and healthy life. Now, neither of those two are going to vote for him. I hope they're happy together. They likely won't end up together, he said, I think, as kind of an aside. But he said something like that. I'm paraphrasing. They likely won't end up together, but I hope they're happy and good for them. Glad for them. That's not hard. That's not hard, and that's the way it should be. And these are the ways, these are the small and gentle ways you can at least not antagonize the millions and millions and millions of Swifties. You don't have to antagonize these people by mocking and ridiculing the woman and her music and her success. She is a symbol to these women of much more than politics, folks. I don't know how to break this to you. My daughter's not thinking about politics. And she's just a few years away from voting. There's no need to needlessly insult people like my daughter. Maybe she won't vote Republican. Maybe she will. I don't know. But I'll guarantee you this. If you attack Taylor Swift, she's going to be like, well, screw you then. Well, look, he doesn't take any delight in it. But I have a feeling that somewhere in the corner of Mike's mind, he's a good man who would never say this aloud, but Mike Lindell at MyPillow might feel just a smidge of schadenfreude at the news that Bed Bath & Beyond has gone bankrupt. Yeah, the company that first threw Mike's pillows and products out of their store has now filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Well, I can tell you at MyPillow.com, They're anything but bankrupt. They are fantastic. They are high quality. They are doing well by their customers, and they don't need a retailer like Kohl's or Bed Bath & Beyond. Yes, they sold their products and sold them well until politics got in the way, so Mike just took it all online, and MyPillow.com is roaring. He also sells at his store the My Coffee, which I drink now and love, and I hope you'll go online and order all of it. And I hope you'll use my name, Chris Podcast, when you do it. If you go to Chris Podcast as your promo code when you go to MyPillow.com, Chris Podcast, you'll get up to 80% on a lot on that website. You'll get discounts regardless, but particularly some of the clearance stuff, you'll save ridiculous money. So please use the promo code Chris Podcast when you order, and I do hope you do. We have an entire bed outfitted with MyPillow stuff now. We've got the sheets, we've got the blanket, we've got the pillows. Even Dean has his own MyPillow dog bed. Like I said, I drink the MyPillow, or it's not MyPillow coffee. It's called My Coffee. I keep screwing that up. That would be weird if it was pillow coffee. No, it's coffee, which I sip sometimes while leaning against my pillow. The MyPillow 2.0, the mattress topper, which is like a brand new mattress without paying for a brand new mattress. You know, he'll ship that mattress topper to you for free if you use my promo code Chris Podcast right now. It's covered in that new 2.0 fabric. So are his pillows that keep you cool all night long. He'll send you a second MyPillow 2.0 if you use my promo code Chris Podcast. For the best night's sleep in the whole wide world, it's true. He's made me a believer. Dean, my dog, as well. The slippers, the towels, the bed sheets, the pajamas, and so much more. And yes, even the coffee. Go to MyPillow.com. Use the promo code Chris Podcast and save, or call today 800-932-5056. 800-932-5056. Who needs Bed Bath & Beyond anyway? MyPillow.com, promo code Chris Podcast. I was in our nation's capital. I dropped in on Larry O'Connor. You know, Larry had been doing a show with Salem TV, and then he got the hook. So Friday was Larry's last Salem television show. Fast Eddie. And I was honored, as was Colonel Kurt Schlichter was honored. As we are his dear friend, we were also honored to be guests on Larry O'Connor's final show. I was in our nation's capital on set with Larry. It was the first time I'd been on set with Larry. The Colonel was live via satellite from California. He joins me live this morning from the West Coast. Hello, Colonel.
Hi. I couldn't get out of my house because I don't have a fire alarm. And I was puzzled. Also, you know, I also already had representation on the East Coast in the form of our new senator, who I believe is named Lafonza, which I believe is a character on the Italian dubbed version of Happy Days.
Now, you got a lot going on. Hey. Let's talk about this for a minute. A moment of all the flags were at half-staff this weekend for the death of Dianne Feinstein. Any parting thoughts or comments on your former senior senator?
No.
Okay.
I mean, you know, okay.
Then I'll ask you.
You know, the reaction around California was like, I thought she already was. You know, here's the fight. This is the truth. Now, you know I'm politically active. You know I'm a fairly smart, hip guy who's hep to what all the kids are into.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, who's our other senator now? And I cannot remember the name of our other senator.
You know what? Now that you say it, I'm kind of stone cold drawing a blank myself.
I think it's a dude. I'm not sure if he.
It's literally okay. Well, we'll get Colonel back while I figured that out. I don't know who the other senator is in California. Now I got to look it up. All right, hang on, senator from. There are people shouting right this now who know smarter than me. Senator from California, Alex Padilla. I literally didn't know. If you'd held a gun to my temple and said, who is the other senator from California, it's Alex Padilla, Colonel. I literally didn't know that.
Yeah, as I understand, he's also a black lesbian from Maryland.
Who is Lafonza Butler? This is who Newsom has appointed to fill Dianne Feinstein's. Who is she? Seriously. Do we know?
I didn't know this person existed until yesterday, and I'm not sure I don't know her pronouns. Which I'm sure are a thing. It's probably
44 years old. Let's see. She will make history becoming the first black lesbian to openly, because of course.
Look, frankly, I think Gavin's half-stepping. Is she differently abled?
Oh, third president of Emily's List. First woman of color and mother to lead the organization.
Okay, well, all right.
Emily's List. So she's pro-abortion lesbian.
Pro-abortion lesbian. Well, that's
black. Yeah.
That's kind of a mouthful. kind of redundant.
So let me ask you about Gavin Newsom while we're on
me
this.
Having opinions on bras.
By the way, Colonel Schlichter's latest piece at Town Hall, how can we keep living with these damn commies, which I want to get to, and the new Kelly Turnbull book in a moment. Your governor, Gavin Newsom, has agreed to have a debate with Ron DeSantis, moderated by Hannity on Fox next month, November. What say you?
I think the average IQ will balance out to be one normal person.
Are you not looking forward to that event?
It's Ron DeSantis matching wits against governor hairstyle. It's going to be like, watching cripples dance.
It's going to be like watching cripples dance? I want to make sure I heard that correctly.
Yes, you did.
Okay. All right.
By the way, that like I said, I was just in mind of yet another identity that Gavin Newsom failed to take into account when picking LaFonza.
All of those come from Pennsylvania. So he's got to represent a different group,
I see.
The Republican debate happened at the Reagan Library. May I just ask, and this is a sincere question. I asked it rhetorically on X, formerly Twitter. What is it that Sean Hannity seems to have for Gavin Newsom? Have you noticed this, that Sean seems to have this unusual, persistent invitation to Gavin Newsom to visit him on set and chat it up? I don't guess I understand what's up there.
I'm not sure I want to do the post-mortem on that particular corpse, Chris.
Okay. Who would you vote off the island? Oh, boy.
Let's just say, I guess he's being bipartisan curious.
Okay.
Who would vote off the island? God.
That was an actual question asked in a presidential debate.
Yeah, it's like, okay, show of hands. Who's willing to toss away all his personal dignity for a couple extra seconds of airtime? Show of hands. Let's see. Vivek, yours is already up. I get it. Also, Matt Gaetz wants his hairstyle back.
I've been talking, that Andrew Breitbart founded his organization under the auspices of sort of his, I think one of the seminal quotes of his is, politics is downstream from culture. That was always Andrew's driving force. And as such, I've always commended Republicans who are willing to wade in the culture when asked, when invited, or at least not needlessly antagonize it. And I thought it interesting then that Ron DeSantis sits down with Bill Maher. Did you see that exchange? Did you like that?
Yeah, I thought that was interesting. I thought he handled himself well. He's going all over the place, and I think Bill Maher's he actually got some level of applause from a L.A. audience, which I think is interesting. I've been to that collection of trained seals. I actually been in the audience at Maher, and they do have a little applause light.
Yep.
Every time, and it's not like when he says something funny. It's like when he said something commie, and these guys either they were shamelessly obeying the light, in which case we have a based lighting guy, or they were responding to him positively. No, I think it's good to go. And of course, Andrew, let's switch topics here. Andrew Breitbart, of course, who I knew and I worked with before he passed away, was the inspiration behind my books.
Yes.
The newest of which is Overlord, available now at Amazon. Lord.
Well done. Very well done.
Thank you. And Chris Stigall may have a cameo in it.
Well, that's reason enough to go purchase the 8th installment of the Kelly Turnbull series.
It is, but there's action and there's bashing the liberals, militant fat people. There's a lot going on. It's a spoiler.
I promise I want to swim in the book for a second. I've just got to ask you about a couple of other things because I'm curious about many, and you help me sort through these things. Here's another question I have for you this morning.
Great sorter.
You are. You're sort the wheat from the chaff.
Wheat from the chaff. Yeah.
Mark Levin and Newt Gingrich are shredding Matt Gaetz this morning. And I'm trying to figure out what's going on. Gaetz says that he's furious, the budget thing. And now Newt and Levin are both saying that Gaetz is like a closet Democrat trying to take out the speaker and that he's a subversive character. And now even suggesting that there's a cloud of question hanging over Gaetz and his ethics investigation that has still not been fully uncovered and vetted. So I don't know any of this. I'm just asking, how do you read it as a steely-eyed conservative?
Well, first of all, I would watch a Netflix series where Newt Gingrich and Mark Levin get together and solve crimes. But
a buddy film, yeah, okay.
A buddy film. The second thing is, I don't know what the hell Matt Gaetz is doing. I'm one of those crazy military guys. I went to that war college you got in Pennsylvania there, and I like to have an objective, and I don't know what he wants, except not this. He's like, when you like that old girlfriend you had, and you were like, let's go out to dinner. Well, what would you like? I don't know. What do you want? Well, let's get Chinese. I don't want Chinese. Okay, let's get barbecue. I don't want barbecue. Okay, what do you want? I don't know. I don't know what. Yeah, I'm frustrated too. But if the Republicans had completely bollocksed the 2022 election, we might not have a 4-seat majority, which doesn't give you a lot of leverage. Yeah. So, Matt, maybe you and your hair can go consult and come back and tell me what you want. I don't understand, and I think look, I don't like McCarthy anymore, and I like any of these other people, but I do think it's kind of hilarious how he took the government shutdown that the Democrats were getting positively orgasmic over right off the table for 45 days. I thought that was beautiful. They were so bummed. They were so mad. They're like, I'm pulling a fire alarm. Gotta get outside.
Yeah, they probably wanted that for, some of the off-year election stuff in November. There's some critical elections coming up in early November. Yeah.
Yeah, what a great idea, Matt Gaetz. Yeah, we're having these off-year elections in like Kentucky and especially in Virginia, where I hear there's 1 or 2 people who work for the federal government. Maybe a good time for a government shutdown. That's thinking. There's something going on under all that hair.
Kurt Schlichter's book, it's the brand new installment of the Kelly Turnbull series, in which he posits a national split. And you write a piece at Town Hall, how can we keep living with these damn commies? You say, I try to be optimistic, I generally am, but American conflict is growing and it's becoming unresolvable. We refuse to live as serfs. They refuse to stop sucking. So what next? And so you say, I've been writing about this for a while in your Kelly Turnbull series. Overlord is out now, number 8 as the installment. You say it's selling out like gold bars at a Menendez family reunion. Very nice.
Yes, I do. You like that.
But are you serious? Is your fiction now becoming a reality in your mind?
That is one of the things. I wrote the first one in 2016, People's Republic. And people were like, Kurt, your writing's brilliant. You're hilarious. But you're a little over the top of the predictions of what leftists would do. And now it's like 8 years later, it's like, Kurt, you're kind of a squish. You gave him a lot of the doubt. because you had like pronoun crimes, militant fat people. I keep going back to that well. And it's just crazy stuff. And it all ends up coming true.
I will say my preacher says not all the time. He's not apocalyptic about it, but he will make overtures every now and again from the pulpit about, look, I think it's going to get worse. I think for those of us that stand in a pulpit and read from Scripture and tell the truth, I don't think this is trending in our favor, my friends. So gird yourselves.
It is kind of in the Bible that it won't.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Look, I'm not a theologian or anything, but it gets worse.
You're correct.
It gets better if you know what I'm saying. Jesus,
you're correct. Yep, you're correct.
So, I mean, it's not like he's really. I'm just throwing it out there. Things are going to get really ugly. Mark of the beast ugly. Wink, wink.
Well, listen. The book it doesn't need to sell itself anymore because it's done so well. It's just now people can't wait.
It's selling so much. Yeah. The fun thing is you release the book and then you get up at Dark 30 because I'm in California.
Yeah.
Although my roots are in Pennsylvania, I am in California. And it's like Dark 30. And you look at the thing, it's already sold a whole bunch. It's sold like a couple hundred during the night. And you're like, first of all, who gets up at like 2 a.m. to buy a book? And then you're thinking, I'm glad. Apparently I am killing it with the shut-in loner demographic. It's just, they're just buying up Overlord left or right. But and like my favorite thing is within 24 hours, I've got like 3 reviews.
Excellent.
Already, and it's a great book. And another guy goes, well, I don't know. And I'm like, you've had the book for 6 hours. Let's let it marinate there, chum. I haven't got the leftist yet whose review is, church sucks. I have had a lot of people. I have had a number of people go, well, I used to like Kurt's stuff, but he prefers Ron DeSantis in the primary, so I hate his book now.
Yeah,
I've already had that. It's like,
are you? We've already established this. I'm not interested in relitigating it at all. I'm really not, because I'm eagerly and enthusiastically going to vote for the Republican nominee, whoever that is.
Me too.
Do you anticipate that whoever that is now is going to have trouble in that both sides seem to be hardening for their support of their particular candidate, be it DeSantis or Trump? Or do you think most people will come home because of the looming disaster that is the Democrat Party continuing on?
Most people are going to come home. I just think it's childish not to support the candidate of your party. I mean, it's a competition. Yeah. Somebody's got to win.
Yep.
And I don't know. Look, adults don't always get to win. That's the point of having one of these things.
Yes.
And so it's like I'm not. People are like, you're gonna be bummed, and no. I'm gonna go. Okay. Well, I made my case. I'm a lawyer. I'm always dealing with people who disagree with me, so I don't take it personally. If I did, I'd probably be in therapy. It's like, dude, get together. I am very happy that you Pennsylvanians seem to be coalescing around David McCormick, a fellow Gulf War veteran, might I add.
He's a stud. He's a good guy.
He's from my mom's hometown.
He should have been the nominee the first time. Should have been the Senate pick the first time, probably.
I think he should have, but, much like LaFon's, apparently you guys had to look out of state for a nominee.
Oh, did you see? By the way, while I've got you on this, did you see that the Senate overwhelmingly, resoundingly, even the Democrats said we'd prefer that we all get dressed to come to work?
Oh, God. Oh, how did we not talk about Federer?
I mean, when even the Democrats say, no, we have a dress code and we're going to get dressed to come to work. When even like it was a unanimous vote.
I think I put it in one of my columns. I don't think the Senate has much dignity, but I think it has more dignity than allowing its members to dress like the guy sitting at the $2 a hand blackjack table at Circus on a Monday morning.
He is Colonel Kurt Schlichter, out with the brand new Kelly Turnbull book. It is the 8th installment, and his piece to accompany it, incidentally, it's a good one. How can we keep living with these damn commies? Overlord, the latest book, number 8 in the Kelly Turnbull series. How can we keep living with these damn commies at townhall.com? Colonel, it is always a pleasure. Thank you for waking.
The Chris Stigall Show podcast.